Hi, this is Chris from the Stephanie Miller Show. Please enjoy this exclusive clip from Political Voices Network.
Well, okay. There's so many cases. Judge Poise, you tweeted Judge Poise to decide if Trump is disqualified from being on the 2024 presidential ballot. This is obviously in a bunch of states. Talk to us about, is this going to, if you are correct and Chris Christie's correct and a lot of other people know what they're talking about, and he's a convicted felon this spring, does that change these cases, and where are we with those?
So, interestingly, the convicted felon piece doesn't necessarily change, but what it does is it gives even more ammunition to the state court judges and the state court cases that are seeking to disqualify him because he engaged in insurrection. And the Constitution, Section 3 of the 14th Amendment says, if you engage in insurrection or you give aid and comfort to insurrectionists after you had taken an oath to support the Constitution, you're disqualified. So I think these court cases are going to be really important. I am hopeful that Judge Sarah Wallace out in Colorado has all of the ammunition she needs to reach, I think, the only logical conclusion based on the evidence, which is Donald Trump engaged in insurrection. Now, that will ultimately make its way up to the Supreme Court. But I have so little confidence in the Supreme Court's integrity that I think they will do everything they can to keep Donald Trump out of the White House, because the Supreme Court doesn't want an aspiring dictator in the White House, because a dictator has no interest in the Supreme Court.
Yeah, exactly. He thinks of them, they all work for him, my judges, right? I mean, speaking of which, on cue, the Supreme Court denied temporary relief to Florida yesterday by upholding the lower court's ruling blocking the state's law that bans children from adult live performances that are lewd in nature. So, that's a blow against Ron DeSantis. They can't, he can't enforce this stupid anti-drag law, right?
Yeah, and sometimes the Supreme Court gets it right. It seems like more often than not, they are willing to revoke people's constitutional rights, particularly women's, previously constitutionally protected privacy rights to make their own reproductive health decisions. But sometimes they get something right. And this is one instance where I think they did get something right. Yeah.
As you know, Trump is already whining about them finding no wrongdoing on with Joe Biden on the classified document stuff, which we knew, right? But, you make a great point in one of your tweets, too. You said once his trial starts, Trump will be convicted by a chorus of Republican voices as prosecution witnesses. I mean, let's hope that the polling is right on that once he is convicted, that changes everything. And
I think it has to.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it has to change everything. I think at some point the Republican Party, if only, coming from a place of self-preservation, will have to say, okay, he's no longer, the mantle bearer. We have to go with somebody else, or else we are just killing ourselves, right? So I do think it's coming. It's been too long in coming, but I do think eventually when Donald Trump is convicted, and I believe he'll be imprisoned, at some point the party's got to walk away from him, just like we're seeing some indications now that even, MAGA Mike Johnson had to, join together with the Democrats to keep the funding going. And the House Ethics Committee has said, DeSantis, get the hell out. I mean, so it looks like, very reluctantly, they're starting to conclude that self-preservation means we have to do something different than we've been doing.
Yeah. Real quick, last thing, is just because obviously there's a lot of talk about Judge Cannon, could screw up Fonnie Willis's timeline and do all this stuff. Just your friend Andrew Weissman tweeted, not scheduling a SIPA Section 5 hearing, which is routine, is a clear sign she's just as much in the bag for Trump as when she issued her horrendous pretrial rulings, both reversed in scathing language by the conservative 11th Circuit. What a piece of work she is. And he said, she just over and over, as you said, showing bias. And so Smith has to be wondering whether and when to seek her reversal by the Court of Appeals and her removal. So talk to us again about what would be the time frame on that and why, if he does.
It seems to me, and, I agree with Andrew's sentiment. I just don't think it's going to happen. I think Jack Smith, if he was going to file a motion to recuse, would have done it long ago. Now, I do think, in aggregate, the more bad decisions she makes, the more basis there is to file the motion to recuse. There's no set time limit. The reason I say that is because, tomorrow, if Judge Cannon said, listen, I am going to continue to do things that show I have a bias in favor of Donald Trump. Well, that would give rise to a motion, right? And I think she has said and done enough to have the motion to recuse filed. And people should remember that the bar is set very low for recusal. The bar is if a judge's impartiality might be reasonably questioned. That's a very low bar.
Yep.
I still think that he should make the motion. I think it should be litigated, and I think we should move past it.
Okay, that is eerie because I don't know if you noticed, but once again, when we finished with Cannon, Clyde started whining again.
Yeah.
He's like, it's like an Amber Alert for bad judicial decisions.
Judges.
He shut up when we stopped talking about Cannon. Okay, Glenn Kirschner, you remained just a hero. Thank you so much. See you. Oh, happy Thanksgiving.
Yes, happy
Yeah.
Thanksgiving.
We won't
Happy
see you next week, but
Thanksgiving.
happy Thanksgiving. Be safe.
I'll miss you next week.
Me too. So thankful for you. Goodbye. There it is, my first drink of the day, Z-Biotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic. Many of you know my story. I stopped drinking wine for 3 years during COVID, during the lockdown as part of a health reset. Now I drink wine in moderation, but this is an amazing new product. I've always believed in probiotics. And Z-Biotics, check this out. You drink just one of these. It's the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. I am using this and I feel great in the morning. I don't have to worry if I have an extra glass of wine, I still feel great in the morning. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. I've always had acid reflux problems. It is this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Z-Biotics produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. All I know is it works. It is Z-Biotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic. Go to zbiotics.com/politicalvoices or scan the QR code on the screen right now.